Big news out of Washington today. The White House's East Wing is being partially demolished as part of a massive new construction project, a $250 million project, 90,000 square foot ballroom commissioned by former President Donald Trump. This is not a simple renovation. It's one of the most significant structural changes to the executive mansion in nearly 80 years, and it's raising questions about priority, power, and the legacy of America's most iconic residents. What's going on behind the scenes? Who pays for it? What are the consequences for the White House, the public, and American politics? Stay with us as we unpack it all. In July 2025, the Trump White House announced plans for an entirely new ballroom, 90,000 square feet, glass-walled, capable of hosting up to 650 people, later revised higher. Why does this matter? Because the largest traditional event space in the White House until now has been the East Room, which holds about 200 seated guests. Trump described the project as something they've wanted for 150 years and said it would be privately funded, zero cost to the American taxpayer, via donor companies and himself. Also significant, the plan involves the East Wing of the White House. That wing, built in 1902 and expanded in 1942, houses the First Lady's offices and other historic functions. So, what began as a high-end event space is now a politically charged project, a remaking of one of the most symbolically loaded buildings in America. October 20th, 2025. Crews begin tearing down portions of the East Wing facade. Heavy machinery, broken windows, construction equipment. The photos tell a story. Despite earlier statements that the new ballroom wouldn't interfere with the existing building, the demolition makes clear it's more than cosmetic. One key twist: the federal agency responsible for reviewing major building changes, the National Capital Planning Commission, NCPC, said demolition or site preparation doesn't require its approval, only vertical build. That means the White House can proceed now, even if full plans haven't been submitted. In other words, the bulldozers are moving, even before full oversight kicks in. And that fact has sparked widespread scrutiny. Let's talk scale and what this really means. The ballroom is estimated at $250 million. Size, 90,000 square feet. Capacity, up to 999 guests in recent statements. The White House claims private funding. Companies like Carrier Global Corporation, donating HVAC system, are listed as contributors. On the symbolic side, this is the first major structural change to the executive mansion since the Truman balcony in 1948. Why does that matter? Because the White House isn't just a building. It's a symbol of democratic governance, continuity, and national identity. Altering it so significantly invites questions about how power and place intersect. The announcement and demolition ignited political fire. Critics immediately seized on the timing and scale. Some Democrats called it prioritizing grandeur over governance. For example, one lawmaker tweeted, "Trump's billionaire ballroom." This is a disgrace, supporters argue. It's an investment in national prestige. A modern venue for state dinners, major events, and global leaders. Inside the GOP, there are signs of tension. While many applaud Trump's bold move, others worry about optics, especially in a time of economic concern and public mistrust in institutions. And the public? According to recent reporting, you're seeing early signs of concern. Americans questioning whether this is the best use of resources and whether transparency is adequate. It's more than just a building. It's about values and priorities. Beyond politics, this project carries institutional weight. The NCPC's role is crucial. Its chair said the commission wasn't required to approve demolition, only construction. That creates a procedural precedent: demolition before full oversight. Think about that. If major parts of a historic national residence can begin demolition under that rationale, what sets the boundary? There's also the issue of donor funding, private versus public cost. While the White House says taxpayers aren't footing the bill, the implications for oversight, accountability, and governance remain. And from a historical preservation standpoint, the East Wing, while perhaps not the oldest part of the complex, still sits atop the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, a World War II-era bunker. The question: can such a high-profile change be made without full public review and input? This project, more than most, asks, who decides what happens to the people's house? What happens next? For the White House complex, the East Wing offices, the First Lady's office, etc., must relocate temporarily. Trees have already been cleared, ground broken, construction scheduled to finish before January 2029, end of Trump term. From a broader perspective, this may influence how future presidents view the White House, not just as a residence, but as a private club, event venue, and personal legacy project. The line between public service and private mark-making is being tested. It also potentially shifts expectations. If one president can remake the White House complex in this way, what prevents future presidents from larger-scale transformations? And what does that mean for institutional memory, preservation, and national identity? Finally, the optics. At a time when many Americans are concerned about cost of living, government spending, and transparency, a $500 million ballroom, if final costs escalate, will be a flashpoint in political discourse. So why should you care, regardless of your political affiliation? Because this story isn't about architecture. It's about power, symbol, and governance. When the White House, arguably the most symbolic building in America, is recast, it prompts the question, who really owns it? How much say do citizens have when the building that belongs to the people is modified? When donor funding, executive preference, and minimal review converge in this way, it raises flags about institutional checks and balances. Also, it's about setting precedent. If you think about the 2026 midterms, the 2028 presidential race, and how voters are evaluating leadership, stories like this feed into narratives about elitism, legacy, accountability, and change. In short, this ballroom is more than glass and steel. It's a story about the shape of our democracy, the role of institutions, and the trust between the governed and the governors. So the next time you see the White House on the news, remember, it's not just a backdrop. It's a battleground of symbols, priorities, and power. And now, with the East Wing demolition and ballroom project, that battleground is very literal. Thank you for watching. If you want detailed, no-fluff analyses of U.S. political and global affairs, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and join the conversation. Because when the places of power change, the nature of power itself changes with them.